Hey folks, Dion here, and today I would like to talk about what's currently going on in the American Cup 2026. So we are reaching the finals, and we had competitors such as Fabi Caruana, Wesley So, and Levon Aronian. And then obviously a few other big name players as well within the tournament, but we're going to strictly talk about those three because Fabi, I believe, is currently ranked number 3 in the world as uh yeah, I believe he's currently ranked 3 in the world. But he recently was just knocked out in the semifinals against Wesley So. Definitely I kind of thought Fabi would be able to take it home, and Wesley So won in the Blitz format. So I believe Fabi won the first game with white, Wesley won the second game with white, and then they drew in the Blitz format, and then they also Wesley ended up closing in the second Blitz game with a fantastic tactic. Bobby then went into the elimination bracket and played Levon, which Levon, he started out kind of rocky. He actually was put in the elimination bracket within the first round. And after the first round, round after round after round, he's been taking down everybody that's reached the elimination bracket. And he's even taken down Fabi, bringing him back into the finals against Wesley So. They've only played one game so far, and that's just what I want to tackle here today. All right, so at the bottom we have Wesley So with the white pieces, and then we have Levon Aronian with the black pieces. And again, this was just a very fantastic game, a masterclass of a game. I'm not quite sure if you all will be able to predict how this will end, but I'll go ahead and just give my commentary and how I was intrigued when I was watching the position. So we have E4 by Wesley, playing something very solid, especially when you're hopping into a classical match of this caliber. You definitely want to start very solid. E5 matching. Then we get developing of the knights. F3, C6. Then we bring out the bishop. And simple development of the bishop. Then we get a castle, and castle by both opponents. Very basic stuff. Very basic stuff. Apparently, this is called the Gyuocho or Gyuocho piano game. Not sure if you all have ever heard that line before, but that's the line they're playing. Very interesting, choosing not to develop the knight to this square, but developing it inward. I'm not really sure there's any drawbacks to that position. Definitely voluntarily blocking your own bishop, so I'm going to assume he's probably looking to fianchetto this bishop. Those are just my thoughts. Who knows what Wesley's thinking? I mean, 2,700 rated player, over double my rating points. So, and then we get a break in the center from Levon. We get a trade, and Wesley brings his rook and slides it towards the center, the F rook. Just kind of putting more pressure on this pawn specifically. We get a knight come back, and we get a sliding back of the bishop. Wesley, I guess Wesley just wants to keep this bishop in his possession. Very smart. And we get a pin of this knight, which I guess it's a good thing that this knight is right here now as well, because we can move this queen off this diagonal any chance that we get, because this knight will be protecting this knight. We get a kick of the bishop. And no, now we actually bring the knight and centralize it, putting some pressure on this bishop right here. Now, this game is starting off, actually, it started off really solid. Now it's actually kind of starting off pretty chippy. Like, we're getting a lot of like kind of threats, little attacks, little maneuvers. You know, I'm threatening this. Before we were having a break in the center. Now this bishop's kind of pinning. We're kind of keeping the bishop here just to keep some pressure. But what's about to unfold in this game, we're going to have some great moves. We're going to have we're going to have some fantastic moves that I'm sure everyone here can learn from. We bring the bishop all the way back, and then we rotate this knight over to G3, now putting some pressure on the bishop on H5. Great move. apparently the only move in the position that doesn't completely double the advantage for Wesley, which is bishop takes, queen takes, and then we get a5, top engine move actually. A5 was the top engine move, and Wesley plays c3, giving a little left for his bishop. Now the bishop can come back to one of these two squares. We bring the bishop back. I'm wondering if he's preparing to break with d4 at any point, although it is protected by two pieces, and this pawn, of course. So I guess that'd be a little bit difficult to do, but maybe in the future. We get a king to slide over. I wonder what the line thinks of that. King h8, second top engine move, 0.03 difference. So again, I guess just preparing for any of those moves like this. You don't run into any of these forks. I'm sure there's just a lot of different issues with the king being on the G square, but we avoid all of those. Now the knight jumps in, looking to grab that bishop, I believe, or also just putting pressure on this pawn right here. And then we get bishop right here, looking to relieve the pressure on this pawn. And also, now that you can't take the bishop with the knight, obviously, but apparently this is the turning point in the entire game before Wesley grabs this game and just squeezes Levon. Now Levon has been having a fantastic run. We've obviously seen him start out not so great, and then being able to pull from that and being able to continue to persevere and move forward. But man, what Wesley does for the rest of this game is just a masterclass on how he's able to convert. And now we get d4, so we actually get that break in the center with d4, which is pretty fascinating. I know we have these two pieces, or these three pieces, kind of protecting, but now with the bishop right there, I guess you're almost assuming that like we kind of have this. Why are we making that break in the center? But we get a kick of the knight, and now the bishop slides in, trying to hit the rook. Rook comes over, knight comes back, and then we get a take in the center with the pawn. He slides the, he reroutes the knight. So he reroutes the knight to this square, putting pressure here. Bishop comes here, and now we get rook sliding to d. Now you cannot take this pawn because the queen is right behind this pawn, and it will be a it is relatively pinned to the queen. And now we're starting to see some of these ideas unfold just because of how I interpret it, at least, is how claustrophobic this position is. I'm sorry, claustrophobic might not be the right word, but how this position just the piece coordination isn't as good with black that it is for white. Like we have this bishop here taking away a lot of key squares, and it's going to be very hard to remove it. This bishop isn't nearly doing as much damage as this one is. This rook is not really doing too much over here as well, and then his rook is obviously over here not really doing too much either. This knight is in the game, this queen is, but we have all these pieces for white just kind of converging and just creating a beautiful piece coordination. And then again, he cannot take this pawn because of the discovered attack. This is the point where I noticed that Levon was taking a really long time to make the rest of his moves. So Levon was really like kind of I guess I don't want to say stressing, but he was definitely feeling the pressure of the position. I saw Wesley kind of get up a little more comfortable. And then obviously they traded places. Levon, after he makes his move, Wesley then is sitting down, and Levon gets up, and Wesley is taking his time, but he's definitely a little bit more lax, as I believe he knows that he has a winning position. He just needs to convert. So we get f5, digging the hole a little bit deeper. And this digs the hole a little bit deeper only if Wesley can find knight to c5. You don't want to relieve any of the pressure in this position. I mean, this isn't necessarily a hard move to find. I mean, unless you're a little bit nervous about what if he has some kind of moves with maybe sliding the rook up, kind of threatening, get his other pieces a little bit more active. But this move, simply you're just attacking this pawn. You can't bring the rook there because then it would be a fork. And that's just kind of too much for this person to deal with, because once you take the pawn, even if you try to threaten this, your knight would be free. And your position is just going to start to crumble. And Wesley finds it. Wesley finds knight to c5. We get the rook coming into the game. This rook is sliding over, but as you can see, this eval bar is slowly climbing, and it feels like Levon is making very reasonable moves, but each move that he makes, Wesley's lead is just growing that much more. And Wesley is converting because he grabs the pawn on b7. Again, I guess pretty self-explanatory moves, but still being able to find it with this kind of pressure is still difficult to a degree, obviously. And then we get queen over to f6. I believe the idea from Levon is to he's slide this pawn up, I believe, to threaten that bishop. I'm pretty sure that is the idea here. And then it also protects this knight. Wesley's not having any of that. Wesley plays g3. Yeah, simply looking to win a bishop here, because you can't just bring the bishop back, because through takes, this knight will be free, and you can grab the knight with the queen. But yeah, it's looking like you're just going to be losing a bishop this turn. Levon again tries to fight back by pushing the pawn and trying to win that bishop back as well. But Wesley finds the great move in the position, saying that I will not let you have my bishop, but your bishop is trapped. And yeah, this bishop has nowhere to go, and there's no way to really get this bishop because the queen now guards it. Very tough position for Levon, as we see the eval bar has jumped up to 3.2, but that's not even the best move Wesley plays this game. That is not the best move Wesley plays this game. We get rook sliding over to g8. We get bishop takes, pawn takes, and discovered check. So king slides over to h1. I'm wondering if there was a better square, but no, that is the top engine move, coming over to h1, not h2. Rook comes down, and then we have the brilliant sacrifice from Wesley, and this was honestly the nail in the coffin. Wesley clearly had the game in hand and still was able to find such a brilliant move. You obviously cannot take the bishop with your queen, or you're just losing a queen for free. With the bishop putting so much pressure on this rook, there's not much you can do here as well, because even if you decide you want to take this right here, Wesley has the amazing resource, which is rook to e8. And then once you trade rooks right here, king sums up. Now this rook over here is going to slide in for a check on g1, and I think you can already see all of the complications that are brewing, because now you're forced to kind of block with g6 right here, and then even if the pawn comes and takes right here, you are now down a I believe a knight for a rook, and your king is very weak, and you're just susceptible to a lot of different attacks and tactics, and you're probably not going to win this game. Another problem with this position is that you can't just play passive and say I just want to bring my rook back, because then you have bishop takes h7, which is another brilliant move, and you cannot take simply with the king, because then you'll have bishop f8, queen h6, and then you'll have mate m1. So these resources alone are just insane. Being able to sacrifice the bishop twice is crazy, but as you can see, Levon is just in a very tough position. But he does play the top engine move, which is unfortunately to take on f6 right here. Wesley very principled, seeing the brilliant move through, plays the idea rook to e8. We get a trade of the rooks. King comes in. We slide in with the rook for a check. Block, takes. And now we just need a conversion. So Wesley says, all right, let me just go ahead and bring my knight into the game. Obviously, my rook and my queen are dealing damage as it is. So let's bring the knight in as well and just fully overwhelm him with all of my pieces. We get a knight comes back. And now he slides the rook over here, threatening to grab this knight. Knight comes here to protect it, but now we get a check. And obviously you can't take with the queen because the rook is now anchoring this knight. And we have a beautiful conversion from Wesley as Levon slides his king over one. Wesley brings his knight down. Levon looks to kick the knight, lashing out with pawn to c5. We bring the knight right back to the same score was at, but now threatening a pawn. Queen comes down. I understand Levon is definitely trying to do something. I wonder if that's the, yep, that is the top move, grabbing the pawn. But unfortunately, it is just too little and too late as we get the great move to check with the knight on g5. King slides up, threatening, but we get rook to g1. Again, just a great move, great conversion. There are no checks in the position because this check right here will be guarded by this knight. Unfortunately, obviously that's not even an option. But unfortunately, we have the checkmate right here incoming. So you cannot play a passive move like so, or you will be getting checkmated. And things are looking really dire. But Levon plays here. We get a check from Wesley. Bringing his knight right back to that square that he definitely seems to love with e6. Levon slides his king right back over to that square. And now we get a different check right here. We slide in again with the king, bringing it right back to that square. And how do we convert this position? It seems like we're bouncing around to a lot of these same checks. I'm not really sure what needs to get done. Well, you take right here the pawn with the knight. Be sure not to take with the rook, because now taking with the knight gives you a lot of possibilities. You now have discovered checks inbound, and you just kind of have a lot more breathing room and a lot more ideas and a lot more things to do, because you can't take obviously, or you just take right here and you're checkmating him really soon. And you can't move, or you're still getting checkmated basically. Yeah, it's basically wraps. Yeah, that's made a variety of different mates, but in this position right here, Levon resigns with 10 minutes left on the clock. Wesley So has 5 minutes left on the clock, and that is the beginning of our finals. So again, really great games for the American Cup. I've been keeping up with it since about March 8th, 7th-ish, so I didn't come in at the beginning, but just looking back at it and checking out the games and seeing how far Levon has climbed within itself is an accomplishment. Unfortunately, he is facing Wesley So. He's got some wind under his sails though, Levon, after beating Fabi, but yeah, Wesley So is not do not play around with Wesley So. He's coming out and he has just been dominant and is fighting hard this entire tournament. But yeah, make sure to like, subscribe, and I'll catch you all later.